If everything in reality is constantly changing, where does stability come from? This question exposes a paradox at the center of how modern thought understands the world. Change is typically associated with movement, progress, and activity. To change is to move forward. To remain still is often interpreted as stagnation, passivity, or failure to adapt. Yet this intuition contains a contradiction. Change can only be detected relative to something that does not change. Movement is intelligible only when there is a stable reference point. If everything moved simultaneously and at the same rate, motion would disappear from perception altogether. There would be no basis for comparison, no way to say that anything had changed. This reframes the problem. Stillness may not be the opposite of change at all. It may be the condition that makes change visible and coherent. This is precisely the position articulated by Ibn Arabi. For him, stillness does not stop change. It holds it, organizes it, and allows it to appear as change in the first place. Contemporary life is shaped by an assumption that constant motion is necessary for stability. People experience chronic stress, mental noise, and compulsive productivity driven by the belief that slowing down risks falling behind. Anxiety often emerges from the sense that one must continuously improve, optimize, or adjust in order to remain relevant. From a psychological perspective, this condition is well documented. Cognitive overload occurs when continuous task switching exhausts executive function. Attention fragmentation reduces the capacity for sustained awareness, making it difficult to maintain clarity or coherence. At the physiological level, prolonged sympathetic nervous system dominance keeps the body in a chronic state of arousal. Within this framework, stillness is often interpreted as danger or loss of control. Rest becomes suspicious. Pausing feels unproductive. The core confusion is structural. People attempt to resolve instability through more motion, yet this strategy amplifies stress rather than resolving it. Ibn Arabi approaches this problem not by offering psychological techniques first, but by questioning the underlying ontology that equates reality with movement. Ibn Arabi's work is best understood as a rigorous investigation into being, time, and perception. He was not primarily concerned with emotional mysticism or symbolic spirituality. His focus was structural: how existence appears, how change occurs, and what remains constant beneath transformation. His core ontological claim is direct. Change occurs within existence, not as existence. Movement belongs to forms, thoughts, emotions, bodies, events. Stillness belongs to being itself. Being does not move from one state to another. It remains constant while forms arise and dissolve within it. This sharply contrasts with modern assumptions that equate reality with motion. Progress, development, and activity are treated as markers of what is real. Ibn Arabi reverses this logic. Reality, in its deepest sense, is located in what does not move. Stillness is not the absence of activity. It is the ground that allows activity to appear at all. The first implication of this view concerns perception itself. Movement can only be recognized against a stable reference. This is not a metaphysical speculation. It is a basic principle of cognition. If everything in a perceptual field moved at the same speed and direction, motion would become imperceptible. Cognitive science describes this through perceptual anchoring. The brain detects change relative to a baseline. Visual and sensory systems rely on stable frames of reference to register difference. From a neuroscientific perspective, Sensory processing requires background signals that remain constant so that variation can be detected. The same logic applies psychologically. Emotional change is noticeable only against psychological continuity. You can recognize that you are anxious now only because there is a stable sense of experiencing across time. Without that continuity, fluctuation would dissolve into noise. The insight is precise. Stillness is not inactivity. It is the perceptual ground that makes change intelligible. Without stillness, change would not be experienced as change at all. A second implication concerns identity. Human beings often identify themselves with changing attributes, thoughts, emotions, social roles, achievements. This identification creates confusion because these attributes are in constant flux. When they change, the sense of self appears threatened. The position here is that identity is not located in what changes. There is a stable witnessing structure beneath fluctuation. This is not a personality trait or a belief. It is the simple fact of being aware. Psychology approaches this through the observer perspective in metacognition, the distinction between experience and awareness of experience. You can observe thoughts without being identical to them. Neuroscience supports this distinction by showing relative stability in core self-processing networks even as specific mental contents shift rapidly. Emotions rise and fall. Roles change and narratives evolve. Yet the fact of experiencing remains constant. The key takeaway is structural. Change happens to you, not as you. Stillness is the continuity of being, not the continuity of personality. This framework also explains why ungrounded change produces instability rather than growth. Constant motion without reference lacks coherence. Forms require a stable ground to maintain intelligibility. Without such a ground, change becomes chaotic. Systems theory offers a parallel. Dynamic systems require equilibrium points to remain organized. When a system lacks stabilizing parameters, it becomes unpredictable and volatile. The same principle applies psychologically. Without stillness, change manifests as anxiety rather than adaptation. A modern example is continuous self-optimization. When identity is tied entirely to improvement, every moment becomes evaluative. Emotional regulation deteriorates. Burnout follows. The problem is not change itself, but the absence of a stable reference that can hold change without collapsing. The insight is corrective. Stillness does not resist change. It regulates and organizes it. Stability is not achieved by eliminating motion, but by grounding it. A major misconception must be addressed here. Stillness is not about slowing down time or reducing activity. It is not temporal. It is ontological. It refers to the structure of being, not to the pace of events. Cognitive science distinguishes temporal experience from attentional stability. You can act quickly while remaining attentively stable. Conversely, you can slow down externally while remaining internally fragmented. Fast-paced activity can occur within inner stillness. Surgeons, athletes, and pilots often report heightened clarity during rapid action. The stillness is not in what they are doing, but in how awareness is organized. This clarifies the distinction. Calm is psychological. Stillness is structural. One refers to emotional state. The other refers to the ground of perception. Stillness exists within movement, not outside it. At this point, a deeper paradox emerges. How can motion arise from what does not move? This is resolved by distinguishing between being and form. Being remains stable while forms transform. Physics offers an instructive analogy. Fields can remain constant while particles fluctuate within them. The field is not empty. It is structured potential. Likewise, stillness is not emptiness. It is fullness without differentiation. This corrects another misconception. Stillness is often imagined as void or absence. In this ontology, stillness is foundational presence. Change is surface-level manifestation. Stillness is the condition that allows manifestation to appear without collapsing into incoherence. The insight is cumulative. Change is real, but it is not ultimate. Stillness is not opposed to transformation. It is what makes transformation possible. Translating this into modern practice requires a shift in emphasis. Instead of attempting to control change, stabilize awareness. This does not mean withdrawing from action. It means grounding perception. Psychologically, this supports emotional regulation through attentional grounding. When awareness is stable, reactivity decreases. Observer awareness allows emotions to arise without dominating behavior. Neuroscience links this to increased parasympathetic activation, which counterbalances chronic arousal. Practically, this applies to stress management and decision-making under pressure. Stability of awareness reduces volatility of experience. Actions become more precise because they are not driven by fragmentation. The rule is structural. Stillness does not eliminate action. It improves the quality of action. When the ground is stable, movement becomes coherent rather than compulsive. The central thesis is now clear. Stillness is not the opposite of change. It is what holds all change together. The contribution here lies in identifying ontological stillness, perceptual grounding, and stability beneath transformation. When stillness is recognized, change becomes intelligible rather than threatening. The world no longer appears chaotic. Movement no longer feels destabilizing. Change unfolds within a stable ground of being. Reality moves continuously. What does not move is what makes it understandable.